Well, hi there, and welcome to this next episode of Authors, Creators, and Visionaries. I'm Elizabeth Lyons, and this interview was so much fun to do. Unless you're significantly younger than I am, you remember season 1 of American Idol, in which Justin Guarini came in second. He came in first in my heart, in my world, but came in second after Kelly Clarkson. And what many people don't know about Justin is, well, there are many things, but one, what really happened and how he really felt during all of that. I think that it's so easy for us as creators, as authors, as entrepreneurs to look at other people who have found what we perceive to be success, whether they've come in first, second, or fifth at American Idol, or they've had a $10 million year, or they've sold 500,000 books. Whatever the case may be, we have a perception. We make an assumption about how things must be for them and how they must wake up every day feeling just incredible and confident and worth it and ready to go buy whatever they want at Starbucks and Lululemon and anywhere else that they want to go. In getting to know Justin, it has been so remarkable for me as someone who loves backstories to be able to talk with him about what really went on and how he felt after possibly one of the most devastating moments for him, which was learning that he had been dropped from his record label and how he learned that. And I think it's a story that he tells often now. I had never heard it. And it's remarkable that this actually happened. What's even more remarkable is how he ended up coming back from that. And having now starred for years on Broadway and being the voice and the character of Lil Sweet in the Diet Dr. Pepper commercials, he has certainly shown that he has a level of resilience that all creatives hope to have, strive to have, work to have. And it was my true pleasure to talk to him about that and about his new program, Core Confidence, and how the building of that kind of confidence, that unshakable confidence, has helped both him and many, many others in their quest for reaching the level of greatness that they're destined to reach and feeling confident, being confident, even in the moments when, as humans, we kind of go, even if you're Justin Guarini, oh my God, should I be here? Who am I to think I can do this? Really quickly, if you haven't already gotten a copy of either, I want to remind you that over at publishaprofitablebook.com, we have 2 free downloads that have been very well received. One is the 6 critical steps for writing, publishing, and launching an impactful book. And the second is a 49-minute free masterclass on getting started writing your book. This is not just an information session, although there are a lot of myths that are debunked and truths that are told. It is also an opportunity for you to actually get started or get restarted writing your book if you've stopped for a bit. So again, both of those resources can be found at publishaprofitablebook.com. And now I give to you my fantastic and fun interview with the amazing Justin Guarini. So what I wanted to talk about with you is confidence, which is probably not surprising. But as an author, and when I work with authors, and it spans so far outside of the author realm, whenever anyone's doing anything, I'm hearing it all over Clubhouse, everywhere. People are talking about confidence. And I've thought about this a lot over the years because I am not an innately confident person. And I kind of wonder sometimes if anybody really is. I don't know. That's probably a deep, dark hole that we don't need to necessarily traverse.
No,
down.
I think, wait a minute, but wait. Before you go past that, I think that there's actually a really big misconception about confidence. So many people think, and so many people that I've come across think like, oh, it's something you're born with. Either you have it or you don't. And I love to be like, no, wait, it's not something that you're born with. It's actually just like riding a bike. It's a skill. You can learn it.
Yeah.
It's something that you can improve upon. And with practice, you could just get really, really good at it and call up on demand or not even think about it.
Well, and we're going to talk about this because I've heard you give some remarkable examples and some instances where it can kind of make or break a situation. But for me, and this is just me, I've learned over the years, it's not about me having confidence. It's about me being confident.
Yes.
It's a state of being.
Yes.
It's not a quality that I either have or don't.
Yes, and bless you.
So,
Bless you. I'm going to get a little closer.
I mean, how do you feel about that?
100%. There is a formula that you will see, and it really comes from, Genesis in the Bible. I mean, one of the places it comes from. And so there's a very, very simple formula. It's a part of a lot of books. It is the subheading of my book with a little bit of an addition. And the formula is this: be, do, have. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Be, do, have. But yet, especially in Western society, we flip that model around. And we think, okay,
Right.
I'm going to make sure that I have the resources. Let's talk money, for example. I'm going to have the resources so I can do what I want to do. Therefore, I will be happy. And that is a way of making things happen, but it requires so much more effort. It requires so much more hustle. And it really is an inefficient model. Whereas if you flip it around from have, do, be to be, do, have, when you are being someone who is wealthy, if we just stick with the topic of money, right? When you behave, when you are being someone who operates from a perspective of abundance and wealth, then you start doing things according to that being, according to those thought patterns, according to, for example, when you go and you study a book that talks about wealth, and you really start to embody those beliefs and those ideas, and then you start doing the things that those kinds of people do, or that those beliefs dictate that you do, then you begin to have the things that you want to have, right? And that goes just beyond money. That goes with happiness. That goes with your body. That goes whatever. And the thing that I love to tag on to the end of that, which I've done in the book, Unshakable Confidence, is, there's be, do, have. And then when you have what it is that you want, and you're living from that place of abundance, or certainly better than it was before, the next level that ends up really magnifying the whole situation is give. When you give and pay it forward, if that makes sense, or when you help to educate someone else who might be in the predicament you were, 3, 6, 9, 12 months ago, then that is the full circle where, it's just joy and prosperity and all those wonderful things magnified.
Well, I think I completely agree with the be, do, have. And I also think it's one of the hardest things for people to do, because we're so conditioned to think, I will do this when, or I will finish this when, or I will launch this when. And one of the reasons I love talking, did you hear my vibrato?
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was lovely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I feel like that was unplanned.
Yeah, it was a nice
I told
spin
one
to
of my
it.
kids that I was going to make you sing a duet and I was going to do harmony. And I think they were like,
only
please.
Only if it's Islands in the Stream.
Oh my gosh. I only know 3 words of that. That would be bad. I'd be making up words too, lyrics. I'd get sued. It'd be terrible.
Cool. It'd be great.
I don't think it would be. Maybe later. Maybe we'll bring that in later. I'll try to be confident enough later to do that. Good. I have the worst voice ever. So, but I sing I sing as though I just won something.
Sure.
I think people believe that people such as yourself, and this is why I love talking to people who are in and have been in positions such as you. There is an assumption that you have all the confidence in the world. And that you always have. And there's a story that I would love for you to tell again, if you don't mind, about, you've told it a couple different times and I've heard it a couple different times, and it never ceases to make an impression on me. And it's the one from Idol when you were in the hotel room in Bel Air or something. And of course, I'm the idiot who was like, are the 1,500 thread count sheets really that great? That was my question.
Right.
Because I really do want to know,
Yeah, they are.
And you did confirm that indeed they are.
They truly are.
They truly are. And you just had this, it wasn't the feeling I think that the majority of the world assumed that you were having. And so
No.
I wanted to ask you about that and about your experience, at that point in your career. And of course, it's gone so far since then as
Sure.
well. But just, how confident really did you feel or didn't you feel? Or what were people assuming that just wasn't true? And how did you approach that? Because when people say to me, well, I'll be confident when I have Justin's level of
Right.
celebrity, I think, oh God, will you? I don't know that you will.
Yeah, no, that's basically just procrastination happening right there.
Yes.
That's all that is. That's just
Yes.
that someday, that futurizing, and it's one of the things that gets in the way of really developing true confidence is just living in this sort of future hazy paradise that we never ever get around to, but then we can use as something to either beat ourselves up with or to just put things off and futurize. And so when it comes back around to the story that you were talking about, I had just come off of American Idol probably 3 to 4 months. And I was living in the most expensive zip code in Los Angeles, in Bel Air. I was in a bona fide mansion, in a wing of it, in the bedroom that I was in, with the wonderful Egyptian count sheets. I had fame, I had money, I had cars, I had clothes, I had maids, I had all the things that
Mm-hmm.
I ever thought and that most people, think that they want. And yet, my album wasn't doing very well. It didn't sell very well. My movie that I had done with Kelly Clarkson was a huge flop. And more often, I found myself being the butt of a lot of jokes in the industry. And so there I was in my room, Saturday night, LA, wild times happening for everyone but me. And I'm in my room just trying to relax and kind of let it all go. And so I turn on Saturday Night Live, right? Great. The old standby, SNL. And
The
so
surefire happiness producer.
surefire happiness
Yeah.
producer. And who pops up on my screen but the wonderful Tina Fey reading the headlines for the weekend update. And so she
Yes.
goes through the headlines. They're funny. It's great. The show's going really well. And then all of a sudden, my face pops up next to her head. And I sit up. And I don't know what she's going to say. But I would have never in a million years, and this is why I'm not a betting man, I would have never bet that she would say what she was going to say next. And so, long story short, she basically told the United States and whoever else was watching around the world that I had been dropped from my record label and that it was a news story. Now, and then from there, they flashed a picture, and now he looks like this, and they put up,
Right.
Art Garfunkel, which is funny. That's funny. That's good. That's great. That was a great joke. They had a chuckle in the writers' room about that, and I think I would have laughed too at the time if the fact that I was dropped from my record label wasn't also news to me at that point.
Right.
So
Right.
I, in that moment, after having an album that didn't do well, after having a movie that really did not do well, after being kind of beat down and made the brunt of many a joke around the industry, both inside and out, I was then told on national television, much to my shame, that I was officially dropped from my record label, and the one dream that I had had for so long in my life was over. And there I was in my quadrillion count Egyptian sheet bed
Right.
and all that in a mansion in Beverly Hills with the cars, the money, the fame, the maids, the whatever else you can think of that you think you want. And I realized in that moment that all of the stuff that I had, all of the things that I had wasn't what I wanted at all. None of it. None of it was what I wanted at all. And it was such a huge, it was like that one last chop that fells the huge tree. And it just, everything came crashing down at that point. And literally, so many of my dreams, so many of my wants and desires and the things and the visions that I had for myself. And then you want to couple that with the fact that I was 3,000 miles away from any close family.
Right.
eh, I literally just took the sheets and all my lovely Egyptian cotton sheets, and
Hey,
I
they
put
were
them over my
1,500
head.
thread
Oh,
count.
1,500 thread count. And I put them over my head, and I don't know if I got out of that bed for, I don't know if it was days. I don't know what it was, but it just, everything came crumbling down.
Yeah.
However, it was the moment, it was the, what I love to call the clarity bus that just like came in and crashed through my door and made it all so clear. And isn't it funny that so many times in our lives we have to hit either rock bottom, or there has to be that snap event that
Yep.
gets us clear on where we are, and really begins the real true work on building our vision for ourselves,
Yes.
or our confidence, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just being confident in who you are,
Yeah.
regardless of what else is going on around you, right?
Yeah.
So, one of the I'm gonna divert a little bit from
Yeah.
what I was kind of planning to do here, because I think this is interesting what you're saying about the record label, and this isn't about disparaging anything, right? You know, I don't do that.
No, no.
But here's the interesting thing. Much like a record label, so if you're a musician, you probably many musicians think that the crowning glory for them is being signed by a record label.
Right.
Many writers or authors or people with a story believe that the crowning glory is being signed by a traditional house out of New York. Now, I have nothing against traditional houses out of New York.
Yeah.
I feel concerned about the fact that the expectations that people have of those agreements aren't necessarily, and in fact usually are not, what ends up happening. And so I think this is just another indication. I'm floored. Somebody messaged me 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago and said that his audiobook had come out and he's with a traditional publisher and he didn't even know. And I
Wow.
said, were you not even given the option of being the narrator? No, the answer was no. So I was struck by that. And to hear that you found out that you were being dropped by your record label I mean, who better to be notified by than Tina Fey, if we're being honest, but
It's true.
you know, but all joking aside, for you to learn that, not from anyone at the record label,
Yeah.
but on,
It
it
just
just,
shows to show you how broken that system was at the time, and now we've seen even more how challenging that
yes.
system is. And so what I think, really, in to link that back to what you're saying, those expectations, you have an
Mhm.
expectation of when you get published by a traditional house in New York, that's it, that's the finish line.
Yeah.
And then from that, which couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, I don't know what the statistics are in the literary industry, but for every one successful record you see, there are hundreds of artists who are not successful and get dropped, right? For
Yeah.
that one. And I have no doubt it's the same exact way in the literary. And what I recognized in that moment when it all came tumbling down, and I think it fits perfectly with what you're saying, is that I identified with the stuff. I identified with
Mhm.
I am a record, I am a record
Is that
signed.
what
Is that,
gave you confidence in that
well, you know
space
what?
and time?
Yes, because that's what I thought was it. I thought that was the
Yeah,
gold standard. It's like you get the medal. I got it.
sure.
I signed the contract with a record label for the, $1 million whatever it is thing, most of which I don't even see, and they find very creative ways of spending, right? That I
Mhm,
would later come to
mhm.
find out. And so, like, it's just, it's insane. It's insane how much we lose when we identify with, either even identify with a goal, or identify with stuff, or identify with material. I think I should say, really, when we identify with these
Mhm.
material things, or identify with these these sort of vanity metrics, right? Like that's
Yes.
another big thing. Like when you think like Instagram and Facebook and followers and likes, like followers and likes don't mean anything.
Anything.
Beyonce has like 100 million people on her Instagram, and do you know
Who
how
does?
many likes Beyonce like
Oh,
has some,
Beyonce.
yeah, like has some ridiculous, in the hundred, at least 100 million
Yeah.
people who follow her on Instagram. And yet, if you look at her
Mhm.
posts, only
Yes.
about 3 million max, maybe
Right.
6 max end up liking her post. And that's less than the, I mean, that's like a less than 1% engagement, right? And so when we look at likes, when we look at follows, when we identify with these vanity metrics, they more often than not are damaging to our confidence and damaging to our ego. And yet, when we pull back, they just don't mean anything. They don't move the needle. They don't
Nope.
actually make you any money or make you anything other than usually pretty upset. It's
Right.
engagement. It's engagement. It's how active the people are with you, you know? And so when I sat there and I lost my record label and I lost my management contract and all these things, I recognized that I had disengaged myself from the people I loved. I had
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
disengaged myself from, you know, society. Now, in my defense, it's like when you get pictures taken of you all the time and people just want to grab your hair and do crazy things like that. Right.
You're
But like,
right.
right. But like you realize that, oh my goodness, it's the engagement with life at that point that I had been so badly missing. And that I had just put all this stuff, all these vanity metrics and all this vanity ego building things between me and not just living, but being alive.
You're right. Right. So what ultimately compelled you to take off the 1,500 thread count sheets from your compelled you to emerge from the 1,500 thread
You know
count
what?
cocoon, as it
Yeah.
were?
Yeah. It was just I had emerged, and I am someone who does not stay down for long in any circumstance, and
Mm-mm.
I fight. And so the way I knew at 23 years of age with far too much money and not enough sense was I'm going to go out and I'm going to make it seem as though everything is okay. I'm going to live like there's not like there's no tomorrow, not in a wild sort of sense, but I'm going to go out and I'm
Yeah.
be like, yeah, like, and pretend like I don't care, pretend like everything is okay, AKA spend like I'm still making a ton of
Right.
money.
So
Right.
AKA, be do have
Uh,
without realizing that that's what you were doing.
Well, sort of, yes, but I was being an idiot, right? And I was
Well,
doing dumb things. I was being an idiot, doing dumb things with my money and my time that then ended up making me have the state of being that was broke. And
okay.
so,
Okay.
and so, so I was doing having all of the wrong things. And
Gotcha.
so it wasn't really until I got, and fortunately, before I spent the majority of my money, I hit a threshold of pain and of suffering inside of my own life that made me ask a better question. And I do a training all on this called, you know, the power of questions. And
Mm.
usually when we're getting a result that we don't want, it's because we're asking ourselves disempowering questions like, what's wrong with me? Why do I always fail at this? Right. And the interesting thing about our brains is that our brains are the most powerful organic computer in the known universe. Whatever question we put in, we're going to get an answer. I could say, Elizabeth, you know what is pi times 64? And your brain would immediately go, I don't know what the hell that is. But it would say, let me get a calculator, right? Or let
I couldn't
me
even
Google
figure
it.
it out with a calculator,
Well,
but I get your point.
get Google, you know what I mean? Like Google it, whatever. Like eventually, if you had enough motivation, you would figure
Right.
out or find someone or some resource that would give you the answer. Well, our brains, when we put disempowering questions in, we get disempowering answers. And based on those disempowering answers, we take disempowering actions. And so there's a formula that goes on from there. But I was just in a place of pain. And I decided to ask myself a better question. It's like, how can I feel good about myself again? How can I XYZ? And it led me to Tony Robbins, right? Like, duh. Tony Robbins was just sitting somewhere, just waiting for me to show up, right?
Just waiting to walk across a bed of fiery coals.
Just waiting. He's like, I got the coals warm, babe. It's fine. I got the coals warm, babe. You know how his voice is.
Come on
And
in.
so like, and so I went to unleash the power within and I walked on
Now,
the
how did that
coals.
work? for you
Yeah.
with because I'm assuming that people there knew who you were.
Yes and no. And they were
Okay.
very cool about it. And Tony knew that I was there. And it just was like, it was
Okay.
low key. And there have been other people who've shown up and like, they're very cool about it. And the staff took really good care of me at the time. And so basically, I go to UPW and I walk on the coals and I love it. And it's great. And I
Mhm.
sign up. I didn't know what a value ladder was at that point. I didn't know what being upsold was. I didn't know any of it. And so I signed up for one of the biggest things that he does, which is Mastery University, or did. And so that was one of the greatest things that I did for myself to pull myself out of it,
Mm.
because it started to really get me back in touch with myself. And it was the foundation for me of so much of the stuff that I write about now. And I don't mean like literally the foundation like I pull from Tony. I mean literally the foundation
Right.
of trust in
Right.
yourself. Because when we talk about confidence, the root word of confidence is, in English anyway, is confide. And confide
Yes.
means to trust. And so when
Yes.
you don't confide in yourself, have confidence in yourself, it means you don't trust yourself. And
Yes.
that's stop number one on the train to Troubletown.
The train to Troubletown. And,
Yes.
the reason that I asked you, how did that work, with people potentially knowing who you were? And
Yeah.
I'm always so intrigued by the fact that there are people in this world who have no idea who Tony Robbins is. And I'm
Right.
always like, what?
Wild.
I said
Wild.
something about Brene Brown a couple weeks ago, and the person I was talking to said, who? And I was like, what rock
Oh,
have you been
wow.
under? So everybody's a stranger to somebody. But the reason I asked about that is because I think that people are equally afraid of success and of quote unquote failure, whatever it is. Because if nobody knows who you are, then you can feel like you lack confidence because nobody knows who you are. So clearly, you're not doing anything correctly. You're not
Mm,
meeting the right people. You're not saying the right things. You're not using the right hashtags. On the
lies.
flip side of that, for you to go to, and a lot of celebrities go to Tony Robbins events. So
Yeah.
this may be a little bit different, but it's often interesting when people who are perceived as having it all together are vulnerable enough to say, I have an on-call. I have 4 on-call therapists,
Yeah. Yeah.
So to go to that event, I wonder back that now we're more open about it as entrepreneurs, but
Right.
back then I wondered if people were kind of, why does Justin need to be here? He's got all this other stuff. And
Yeah, I think that's so interesting because it was, I mean, it was well over, I might have been 12 plus. It was a long time ago. Actually, it was probably
yeah,
closer to 15 years ago at this point. And now we're like, yeah, I got a problem. I go have a
right,
therapist. I take this or that sort of a medication, and it's like cool, right? Like we're
right.
like, yeah, okay, great, good for you. But like back then, there was still that holdover from like the 50s and the 60s where it's like, no, I have to make it seem as though I am all together. And so it was more
Mhm.
challenging, I think, for me than it was for anybody else, because I was raised by that generation of person who was like, don't never let them see you sweat, and
Absolutely.
right,
Absolutely.
and so that was challenging for me. But at the end of the day, once I was there and I was in it, and then certainly once I got into the Mastery University, that's more
Yeah.
rarefied air there, and it actually ended up being one of the most amazing experiences of my life. And I went all around the globe, and I discovered my most favorite place on the planet, which is Fiji, which is where Tony has a resort there that part of the classes were held at. And
Okay.
it just is like, it was a huge boost in terms of trusting myself.
So when did you recognize, because what you're doing, I'm so fascinated with what you're doing right now around the idea of confidence.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering when you recognized you have such a passion for this topic. And
Hmm.
I know this because Clubhouse is an audio only app. And if someone does not have passion for something, it is immediately apparent. And
Yeah.
the way that you talk about confidence and trust in self and all of those things is just like, it makes me it makes me want to go buy if you were selling it as a product, I'd be buying it. Right.
Hey,
So
well, wouldn't you
serious.
know?
I know. And then from there might actually be a I know.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
served
It's
it
good.
right up.
Set me
Didn't
right
I?
up. Perfect. Yeah.
Set you right. I didn't even mean to. Can you, gosh.
Yeah, it's all good. You're that good.
Yeah. But here's the thing. So when did you realize that was, your key or a key? I don't want to say it's the only one, but when did you realize that because confidence is so, it's so esoteric. So people say, well, what's your passion? And some people will say money or, investing.
Yeah.
Like I love the stock market, or some people cars, or, I love to travel. Confidence, that's like it's not odd in a negative way, but it's not a typical answer. When did you realize, gosh, I think I'm really into this whole confidence thing?
Well, it was interesting over the years. And again, so much of what I think so many of the successes I've had and so many of the successes of people that I speak to have had, they're all born of massive failure. I mean, it's just like anybody who's ever made anything, whether that's impact or a material thing of significance, has failed massive amounts of times. I mean, all over the place, or had, horrible tragedies, or had to overcome these mountains. And so, looking back on my, almost 20 years ago now, when I was given my big break after years of study, after years of toiling and trying to figure it out and trying to get my foot in the door. And then, over the past 20 years, the number of times I have failed in attempts to try and reinvent myself, or to try and push the envelope, or to try and whatever. Well, I've learned so much from those failures. And so people will come to me, and have over the years come to me for advice, whether that's entertainers or influencers or entrepreneurs. And I just have given what advice I could give based on what I know. And it wasn't until 2020, let's just say the biggest fail year for many people anyway. It was a huge boom for other people, but for many people, it was a big fail year. And I was forced, 100% forced to pivot away from the easy big paycheck, from the what I was always doing and always skating by. And I was forced to get radically clear on what was going on in my life. And from that, I pulled the very first pillar of what I call core confidence, and that's clarity. It's really being able to get clear and radically honest about what's going on in your life. And so that was 2020 for me. I was utterly exposed. I mean, you want to talk about financially exposed. The relationships that I had with people were exposed. The fact that, things that I was doing, and I don't mean like bad or unhealthy things. I'm talking about like stuff that I was doing just haphazardly with my time and my life. I couldn't go out and do those things anymore. And so my fitness, everything was exposed. My entirety of my life was exposed. And some of it was like, this is awesome. Others parts of it, I was like, this is the most horrible thing ever. And I don't know how I'm going to make it through this year. But, I got into this because I had been teaching a lot of entertainers what I call audition secrets. And
Yes,
so
I love there's a story that you tell about it's not really a
yeah.
story, it's an analogy
Yeah, it was just a
of,
horrible event that happened to me, basically,
mhm,
and a horrible audition that led me to, being like, should I even be doing this anymore? Should I
right.
be? And then from there, once again, I only stay down for so long. I got up and I said, okay, I don't ever want to feel this way again. How can I go about making sure that I never feel this way in an audition, or am treated this way in an audition again? And then from there, I thought, oh my goodness, you want to talk about be, do, have. And then that final piece for me, which was the give, it's like, oh, wait a minute. If they can treat me this way, and I'm by far not at the top of the list, in terms of rankings, but I'm not at the bottom either. I'm somewhere in the middle. And if they can treat me like this, imagine the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who are not at my level, who get trampled on in the entertainment business and in the audition game,
Yeah.
right? And so, and even then above, me, right? And when the stakes are even higher. And so I said, okay, how can I make sure that we as a community never have to feel this way again? And how can we take our power back? Because we've been taught that we are powerless, that we are cattle to be led to market and slaughtered, or not, or
Right.
put out to pasture. And so that really fueled so much of my desire to double down on teaching and mentoring, which I had liked, but I'd always been like, oh, I'll do that when I retire. That'll be something I do, then, right? That future sort of then. And yet 2020, my big hauls, my things that kept me safe and secure in terms of financially and career wise were cut off. And so I had to fend for myself. And so I took the savings and everything that I had, and I just started doubling down and trying to figure out this path. And then in the end of 2020, and I mean, look, I was giving amazing advice, amazing courses, and I could not get arrested for, much less get more than 6 or 7 or 8 entertainers to come to my master classes. And I mean, we're talking about virtually. And it
Which
just was,
is just mind-boggling
isn't
to
it?
me.
Isn't
No,
it
it
though?
really is. And like, I think we have to take a moment there because there's this assumption, and again,
Yeah.
it comes back to that every single time. Well, when I reach this level, everything will just be easy. People will
Nope.
show up, and everyone will, I could sell rocks. Like I could just
Right.
put up rocks on my website, and people will pay $10 a rock.
Right.
Whatever
Right.
it is, and it's not true. So I while I don't love to hear you say that, I do, because it really validates that you're always working to find your audience. And I was in a
Yes.
Clubhouse room. God, it was like 3-4 weeks ago. JJ Virgin was live coaching someone on her book launch.
Yeah.
And JJ Virgin, I mean, she's been on the New York Times bestseller list for like 26 weeks.
Yeah.
There were 7 people in the room.
Wild.
7. And I thought, I wonder, like, I really wanted to ask, like, how does this feel for you? Do you care? I don't know that she cares or not, right? But if your confidence and your trust in yourself is not there, you're going to go, well, I guess I suck because only 7 people showed up today.
But the thing is that, and it ties perfectly with the end of what I'm saying, is that like I needed those 10 or 7 or 8 people to show up. And I learned more from them than if a horde of 300 people had showed up, right? It would have been so much to handle, but I was able to get into those 7 or 8 people in their minds and really give them that sort of hands-on kid glove approach. And I learned the real reason why they were there and the real reason why so many people had come to me in the past. And it opened up my mind to a possibility, because again, I was willing to suffer the pain of only 5 or 6 people come in, and I'm going to try and refine my message. And I'm going to test this headline, and I'm going to do this Facebook ad, and I'm going to write this book, and I'm going to do and just keep going and digging and digging and digging and trying to find the words and the verb, whatever it is that people respond to, that I hit something, and I hit this thing that tied it all together. And it was confidence. And now it wasn't like, I magically was like, oh, and all of a sudden I get confidence. Like, no, I literally had to go through that business being less than what I wanted it to be, significantly less successful than I wanted it to be. And then one of my mentors, live in front of 300 other men, smacked me around, figuratively, of course, and said, this what you're doing, you've got the right idea, you're just going after the wrong people. And so then I started pivoting away from entertainment and really doubling down on entrepreneurs and influencers.
Why was it the wrong audience, though? I'm often fascinated by that, because lots of times with authors, the issue is not the product. The issue is the audience.
Yeah.
You have an audience problem. And going
Yeah.
not full circle, but just going backward to the beginning of the conversation when we were talking about vanity metrics, I have an author who has a huge following on Instagram, and the minute the book was released, sold like 4.
Wow.
And ultimately, it was determined that you have an audience problem.
Yeah. And
right?
and that's it. There's an
Yeah.
audience and message conflict, right? Like, well, there's a couple of factors that I think kind of made the audition secrets not go well. And so one was entertainers are loath to invest in themselves on a grand scale, right? It is such a commoditized market, meaning that like everybody and their grandmama has a dance class, has an acting class, has a this class, and it is a race to the bottom because they're all relatively the same. There's only so many techniques that can be taught. There's only, and it's like, oh, there's 50 different people teaching an acting class. Okay. And they're all relatively the same. What's the thing that the consumer looks at then? They look at price, and whoever has the lowest, it's a race to the bottom at that point because someone is always going to do it for cheaper than you're going to do it. So that's one. And I was trying to charge like what I'm worth being paid. And people were just like, what? And so I had to like discount it. And then that doesn't do anything for me. That barely, I don't even think it covered my advertising costs.
Right.
And so then on top of that, you want to talk about a message and audience conflict or incongruency. You know, people see me as the guy from American Idol, Lil Sweet, the guy from Broadway. They don't see me as teacher. Right? Or they didn't, right? They don't, that's not the first thing that I lead with. And my social media content and much of the content that I put out didn't really speak to any of that. It was not consistent. It was very much a performer's content. It was very much like a dad with a wonderful wife and kids content, and just like this generalized, non-polarizing social media content. And we could talk about polarizing and non-polarizing, right? All day. That's why I love that little giggle, because like it's just this milquetoast sort of like content that doesn't make people say yes or no. Right? Yeah. And so that was one. And then 2020 rolled around, and some very intelligent folks said, okay, we are going to gather up all of the actors that we can get on our roster, and we're going to offer master classes, and we're going to help them figure out this stuff, and then we're going to market it to the actors who are out there. So all the Broadway actors, I should say, we're going to gather them all together, and we're going to get all the flavors of the month in the big Broadway shows, and we're going to say, hey, look, if you just agree to be with our company and give a master class for $45 a person, we'll keep 5, you'll keep 40, and there'll be this. And they were really smart. And in so doing, everybody and their grandmama had a master class, or they had one that was slick, and they had the hottest Broadway star of the moment, or whatever it was. And the market was such a red ocean that I was swimming in. And here I was, even though I have a name, even though I was on TV in front of 30 million people, even though I've done more Broadway shows than most of the flavor of the month people who I love, and I'm not putting down, by the way. All of that, like, it's just
it
me.
Didn't matter.
It's solopreneur who's like only got so much Facebook reach and only got this much, that, and the other. Whereas I'm going up against these people who have a roster of 10 or 20 of me, and who then are able to pool their money together or get some things together to do a massive blitz in the trades. And it's just like I can't compete with that.
You can't compete with that, right?
No, you can't. And so, I mean, and again, it's just like, it's like being an independent artist or being signed with a record label. The record label can lose $1 million and be like, oh, well, they'll write it off. But how's the indie artist going to be able to keep up with it? They can't. So that was when I switched to entrepreneurs and influencers. And the final thing with artists, they just didn't have any money. It was 2020. And they were like, we want to spend $5. We want to spend $5. And you know what? People were selling it for $5. I was not willing to sell my services for $5. So I said, well, who is in need of this kind of thing, and who is used to making the investment in themselves? And that's influencers and entrepreneurs and professionals, doctors and lawyers and all that. And so that's when I started making the shift. And it was like, at first I was like, I'm going to go find some people with money. But then as I let go of that material need, it was like, oh, okay, I see how I can take everything that I've learned in my performance life and everything that I have learned in the past 3 years when it comes to marketing and advertising and sales and legal and optics and funnels and copy and NLP and all the things that I started, 3 years ago, started to see the writing on the wall, because I turned 40 2 years ago. And I was like, I should probably start thinking a little bit further down the line. And it opened up the Russell Brunson world in my brain, and all these other things opened up in my brain. And so all of a sudden here, out of 2020, the worst year ever for so many people, including myself in my career, in my business, it ended up now here in 2021, right at the end in December of 2020, pivoting to this wonderful place of, oh, I get it. And here's one of the basic foundational building blocks of success, no matter what industry you're in, and that's confidence. And so I started finding out as much as I could. And then the more I found out, the more I related it to the things that happened in my life. And I recognized that I just have a natural confidence, and that I have failed so many times and learned how to really build confidence, so much so that I can get in front of millions and millions of people on live television. I can get in front of thousands of people on stage and be half prepared, and yet still know that I got this. Because why? What do I have in myself that cannot be broken? And that is trust.
So would you say one of the things that I really appreciate about your program is that, first of all, it is perfect for entrepreneurs. It's also, in my opinion, perfect for kids.
Yeah.
I don't know if you thought about that, but
oh, believe me, you and I are gonna talk offline about that, because yes,
yeah,
I've thought about all of it.
well, I just think that there are so many opportunities. But what I'm thinking as you're explaining this is it's, and I know that you don't, without divulging too much about your program, you don't go in and go, okay, this is confidence and this is how you get it. But what I'm understanding is that confidence is really the end result of understanding all of the other foundational areas. You mentioned clarity. So being clear, you can't feel confident. You can't be in a state of confidence if you are not clear about what you want, what you believe, who you are, where you're going, etc.
Absolutely. And that's why I say, unshakable confidence, or what I call core confidence, is the formula for being, doing, having, and giving more than you ever imagined, because there's an art and science to it. It is a formula, right? And it's success. Just like success, confidence leaves clues. And so core confidence for me, and the foundation of my program, is the fact that it's 4 key skills that, when you apply them to the 4 key areas of your life, you can create the foundation that you can build the life of your dreams on. And now, that's a wonderful elevator pitch. Well, what do I mean by that? What are those 4 key skills? Well, the first we talked about is clarity. The second is commitment. The third, creativity. And the fourth, certainty. And then when you take that clarity, that commitment, that creativity, and that certainty, and you apply it to the 4 key areas of your life, the first being your body, second being your spirituality, third being your relationships, whether that's with a significant other, your children, your family, and then finally business, whether that's making money, keeping money, selling a product, whatever that may be, or service for you. When you can apply those 4 key skills to those 4 key areas of your life, that is where you create a foundation of confidence, confide in self, that trust in yourself that allows you to make better decisions, that allows you to build the body that you're looking for and that you've always dreamed of, right? That allows you to get out of the start, stop, karmic sort of loop that we fall into, because one of my just most loved mentors, Myron Golden, said to me one time when I was in one of his classes, he said, the bad thing about telling a lie is that some of the people have heard some of the lies you told, but you've heard all of them. And you've lied and broken your word to yourself so many times that you can't believe a word you say. And so that's why we run into, whether it's in our body or our spirituality or our relationships or in our business, that's why we run into that December 31st, I'm going to lose 10 pounds this year, right? And we really are into it. And we're not clear on where we are and what's really going on in our bodies and the metrics, the facts that we can measure. Right. But we get lost in that future hazy paradise that we talked about earlier. And yet we're like, yeah, it's going to be so great when I can fit into that suit or that dress or whatever it is again. And then around the second week of February, it all falls apart. Because we're not clear about what it is that we want or where we're starting from and where it is we want to go. We haven't made a commitment to ourselves, like the literal committing to decide to cut off from any other options. We haven't gotten then creative about our commitment and found different interesting ways to make it fun or make it something that just doesn't become a monotonous task. And then we haven't built up a daily routine that gives us that certainty, that allows us to track our progress. And so, when we can take those things, and I love teaching this stuff. If you can't tell, I get very passionate about it.
I can.
And we can apply them to the key areas of our life. It's then we just begin to trust that we're going to make better food decisions if we want to talk about our bodies, right? We're going to make better health decisions. When it talks about, spirituality, we begin to trust in whatever that is inside of you that you call it, even if it's the great nothing, and it doesn't matter. I would identify with God. We begin to turn our face towards God. And I believe for me, it's like God can never love me or any of us any more than he already does. It's just a matter of whether or not I choose to accept that. And so then when we talk about in our relationships, we learn to trust ourselves, right? And we learn then, with the trust we have in ourselves, to begin how to set up our relationships so that we can trust others. And in business, again, trusting ourselves to make good decisions, trusting ourselves to know what it is that we don't know. I could go on and on and on and on, but it is a fascinating process. And it's a formula that, like I said in the very beginning, is a skill that can be learned and can be enhanced.
And do you find that as it is learned and practiced and enhanced, a lot of those peripheral questions, concerns, worries, frustrations just sort of fall by the wayside? In other words, no longer worried about the vanity metrics, because that's not the measure of, do I have a reason to be confident, right?
Yeah. It becomes, so much of what we deal with. And again, 2020 was an amazing year of exposure for everyone at every level. I mean, even Jeff Bezos, who made a quadrillion dollars, right, it was still on some level exposed. I mean, certainly his marriage was exposed, but like, you know what I mean? Like it was, there was exposure no matter what. And so, those sort of vanity metrics, those worries, those concerns, for me, they don't ever go away. I don't think they fall away. I think it's just kind of like, for me, they become like the radio in the background that somebody turned
like
down.
White noise.
Yeah, it becomes white noise. And when some event threatens to turn it up and the volume gets cranked up, confidence is the ability to, very, very figuratively reach over and just turn down the noise again. Right. And so when those moments that would trigger us come into our lives, confidence allows us to observe the trigger, observe the way we feel, and say, does this serve me or does it not serve me? And even if it's something super negative, with trust in yourself, and if you ask yourself the right questions, you can turn some of the most horrific events into some of the most empowering things that happen in your life. And then be, do, have, give. You can then pass those lessons on to people. And that's why I love being a coach and a mentor. And that's why I have coaches and mentors for what it is that I do, because the coaches and the mentors, I learn to trust what it is that they see more than what it is that I see, because they've been further down the road. They know where the potholes are, like you with your authors, and you know where the S curves are and where the guardrails aren't. And you will take someone who has so much talent and drive, and who otherwise might drive themselves off a cliff, and you will hold them by the hand and you will guide them to their destination. And that is the beautiful giving of coaching. That's a beautiful thing that you do, and that you have done even for me. Just I can't wait for people to read this intro to the book, because you asked me one simple question, and that one simple question on how to frame why I'm writing this book, or why someone's reading the book, opened up this torrent for me that I then turned into an intro that I am proud of, mostly because you told me that you were proud of it. So
I am. It's fantastic.
Yeah, cheers.
It's so authentic. I mean, anything that's not authentic can't not be fantastic. I just used the double negative.
Right, I was just gonna say.
I know.
I was like, should I let her go on that?
It like cancels it out, you know? No, because you're so authentic and clear about exactly who you're speaking to and why. And I really think that maybe we've all been perceiving the word confidence incorrectly for a very long time. And there's all the difference between confidence and arrogance. And I want to be humble, so I don't want to be too confident because I want to be humble.
Right.
And I think that, I think if we can just translate a little bit of that into the confide, going back to the root and the trust in self, and just really knowing who you are.
Yes. And I will say this, that is such a wonderful point that you bring up, because, there's overconfidence, right? I don't know if there's such a thing as overconfidence. I think overconfidence is a misnomer. What you're really talking about when you talk about overconfidence is you're talking about that cockiness, arrogance, bravado, right?
Which is actually no confidence, if we're being completely...
Absolutely. Do you know why? Because bravado, cockiness, arrogance is all are words spoken or actions taken with the intention of intimidating or impressing or subjugating. It is squishing someone else down to make yourself look bigger.
Yes.
You don't get any bigger. You are just putting other people down in order to make yourself seem bigger. So there's no confidence, no trust in self in that.
There.
Absolutely not. Whereas, it's that arrogance and that bravado and that cockiness, it energetically speaking, sort of metaphysically, it is a repellent energy. It is an energy that pushes away, which is why you don't want to be around people who act like that, right?
Correct.
Whereas confidence, when we really dig into it, confidence is the exact opposite. If we want to go at it from a metaphysical standpoint, confidence is an attractive energy. It pulls you in, which is why you love and you marvel that when you're on a Zoom call or the phone with your friend and you look at your counter, you know how they give you the time counter now, and you're like, oh my goodness, we've been talking for like 2 hours.
Right.
Why is that? Why is that? Because there's two people who trust themselves, who don't need to be any more or less than who they are, and who just speak from and act from a place of authenticity, who recognize their own self-worth, who feel comfortable with themselves in that situation. And it is just this attractive energy where you just keep talking, you just keep wanting to be around or with one another. And confidence is quiet. Confidence is overconfidence.
Oh,
I don't believe it. It's quiet.
Yes. Confidence is very, very, very quiet.
Yeah. There's a guy, speaking of Clubhouse, there was a guy who was an author, who was an ex-Navy pilot or something, flew all the Top Gun jets and all that other stuff. And he said, the best pilots were the ones that sat in the corner quietly unassuming, and they would fly circles around all the hot shots, but they were just, you would never ever know that they were the best.
Is that when they do speak, people pay attention.
Yes. Yes. Because it's from a place of just authority. And it's not authority based on letters behind your name or a diploma on the wall. It's just, it is an energy of that deep trust. And when we trust ourselves, we tend to make much better decisions. When we trust ourselves, we tend to really speak from a place of authenticity and vulnerability. So our words, our actions have so much more weight.
Right. You did a 5-day challenge.
Yeah.
What's coming up next? Like because I know you've been working on so much stuff. So what next part of your program are you super excited about? How can people find out about it?
I am so excited because I now, thanks to you certainly helping me out with the intro and hopefully helping me out with more, I'm writing this book. I'm writing the book,
Yay!
Unshakeable Confidence, the formula for being, doing, having, and giving more than you ever imagined. And so
can I just say the cover is so great?
Oh, thank you. I love it. You know what? I got it. Can I be totally honest with you? I went, not that I wouldn't be otherwise. I literally took a picture that a wonderful photographer, Chris Boudwins, took. And it was a headshot. It was something that we did a couple of months ago. And it's just one of my favorite pictures. And I went into Canva and I mocked that thing up myself.
I know, and I almost don't want you to, like, I almost feel nervous. We need to put a disclaimer, like, just because Justin did it does not mean that I'm giving everyone else. Because when you sent it to me, I was like, did you do that? Like, this is great.
Oh, cheers.
I mean, your font, and there's an art to book cover design, right? Fonts have to, like, things have to happen. Your kerning's got to be right, the whole thing.
Right.
But, like, you did it. I mean, it was just...
You know,
even
a blind squirrel gets a nut sometimes. So yeah.
But this is not permission for everyone listening to go onto Canva.
I mean, look, I'll give you permission to try it just to see.
I mean,
but,
run it by someone, please. I beg of you. But
please,
yes.
And so now I'm writing this book, and the book is going to be done. Actually, by the time you're hearing this, the book will certainly be done. I am. Let's see, I have an audiobook that's going to be available. I'm going to record that as well. And then I have Unshakable Confidence, what I call the Unshakable Confidence Quick Start course that comes after that. So the book is going to really outline what Unshakable Confidence is, and then what the core confidence method is, that formula for being, doing, having, and giving more than you ever imagined. And then there's going to be the audiobook that's available so that you can be, in your commute or running or doing whatever it is that you do that's active, right? Because I love, you did brisk walk. I love to listen to books on tape because if I'm working around the house or I'm feeding the dogs or clean, I love listening to books on tape. So that's, for me, it's just such a thrill to record this audiobook. And then
I'm glad you'll have that.
Yeah, cheers. And then I'm super excited about the Quick Start course because it's Unshakable Confidence. And I call it Quick Start course for a reason, because I want people to quickly hit the ground running. And it's a companion to the book. And it's also a companion to a membership site, the Core Confidence Academy, that I'm creating. And so there's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things that are emanating from the work that I have done and the research that I have done, and some case studies that I have done with people that I've worked with about how to just create confidence and build confidence and really excel at the skill of being confident.
I love it. I absolutely love it. What's the best website for people to find all of this?
So all you have to do is go to coreconfidencecoaching.com, and that will lead you to the book. And what's really super wild is that, and you might be angry at me about this, but I am giving away the ebook for free.
I'm not angry about that at all.
Yes, I'm giving away. I'm giving it away.
Yeah, as long as you know why you're doing it as an author, it's a great strategy.
Yes, I know exactly why I'm doing it, because I want this to be in people's hands. And the book itself is not just a one-way traffic book. There's actually assignments and things that you can do to, just by reading it, links that you can go to that are free, where you can discover more about confidence, more about your specific blocks and how to unblock yourself. It's something that I've always wanted to do with the book, to make it an interactive experience, and then to make it free on top of that, and to offer people some really great ways where they can connect with me, where they can get the audiobook, where they can find out about the Quick Start course, where they can find out about the membership and some of the other larger programs that we have going on, is just a phenomenal for me. It's something that I've been wanting to do for years, and now I'm finally going to do it.
And what a beautiful way of incorporating the give.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are people out there who need this right now and are still suffering from the effects of 2020. And so to be able to just download the ebook and go through it and start finding some of your, remarkable tips and strategies and exercises and action steps is such a gift.
Yeah. Thank you. And it is. It feels good. And that's it. That's why I don't say be, do, have. It's be, do, have, give.
I love it. Thank you, my friend.
Oh, my pleasure. You're so awesome. And let me know how you like that maple syrup in your coffee.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, this is your friendly reminder to like, subscribe, and share so we can keep getting the word out, pun intended. And if you're looking for a fun, productive workshop to get your book written, I invite you to check out my newest free on-demand book writing workshop, as well as a slew of other book writing and publishing resources over on my website, publishaprofitablebook.com. Again, thanks so much for joining in, and I'll talk to you again soon.